So hello.
Hello.
Hi. So your album was out in May, wasn't it? Has that been received well since?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose reviews and stuff came in and they were better than the last one, so that's all fine. I mean, to us, I think the indicator is the live shows, you know, and what they've been like, and we've been on tour all year, so that kind of proves to us that it's going well. But I don't know, you just get into a bit of a cycle or a routine where you don't even think about it, you know, you just kind of see a diary and you see that you've got shows here, there and everywhere. You just think, well, if you feel busy, then you are, I guess. Well, Walking Backwards is a song about our relationship with our old record label and about how stifling that became, and about how if you need to change something, then you can't wait around for somebody else to do that for you. You need to kind of make the change for yourself, and that's kind of what we did. So I suppose the song's just about that in its entirety.
And how does it feel to be your own bosses now? Is it good?
Yeah, it does feel good. I mean, we could do with Warner Brothers money, but other than that, yeah. I mean, it's hard because it's a very metaphysical thing. You know that you're a lot better off having your own label, and you know that having the copyright to your music is the most important thing that's happened to our band, and you know that not having to like meet label people who are just basically getting paid to do no work is a great thing, but at the same time you're kind of constantly scrapping around to try and find money to go on tour to like America and Australia and Japan, and the logistics are made a lot harder. So the immediate things seem really difficult, but the spiritual benefits have been massive, so I guess it's a good thing in the long run.
And you wouldn't go back?
No, I wouldn't go back.
And you mentioned you're playing lots of festivals this summer. Is that something you enjoy doing? Are you kind of just hopping from city to city and not really taking any of it in?
Well, yeah, I mean, festivals are amazing experiences because it means that you, like you say, you get to go all over Europe or all over the world, and you don't really have to worry about selling tickets or about your perception of the fans or the place. You just turn up, there's a huge crowd, and you just go away again, you know. So they're a little bit robotic because they're so orchestrated, but at the same time they're great for bands to get in and play because, you know, we've done them in like Mexico where we wouldn't have gone on a normal tour, and Brazil and Japan and stuff like that, so they're a bit of a treat for us, I guess, really.
And where do you think you go down best? Is it when you come back to your hometown, do you think?
I don't know, I think we went to America in June just for a very brief amount of shows, and that felt great because we haven't been in America for 2 years, and playing in New York felt exactly like playing in Sunderland, you know, and that was quite an amazing experience because you always worry when you haven't been to a country for so long that everyone's just going to have like forgot about you and be like, I'm going to see Vampire Weekend or whatever. So it was really nice to experience like that element of warmth, and I think when we go back and do a full tour in October, that will probably be, fingers crossed, the best tour that we've done on this cycle yet, really.
And is America quite important to you as a band?
I think the idea of touring America is important to us as a band. You know, it's the most romantic place to go on tour because the drives are so long and the cultures are so separate in all the states, and it's the only place that you can really feel like you're actually on the road. You know, like in the UK, it's 2 hours between like London and Manchester or something. You know, and on the bus you don't really notice the difference. And once you're inside a venue, you could kind of be anywhere. But in America, there are so many other outside factors that are different that it makes you feel like you're on a real tour.
And obviously you guys are from Sunderland. How much is your location of where you've been brought up influenced your music, and do you think it works in your favour when you go overseas?
Well, I think coming from Sunderland has been a huge part of this band's identity, you know, because we all sing in very kind of broad accents, I guess. And that was one of the kind of founding rules of the band. You know, we had a small manifesto when we started. No effects pedals, no kind of talking in between songs. All the songs would have one section and never be repeated, and we would always sing in our own accents. When we walk on stage, we say, hello, we are the Futureheads from Sunderland, so it's one of the first things that people get, you know. So it has been a massive part of our identity. But when we go away, I think American people, Japanese people, they see us as being British, they don't see us as being from Sunderland, so it kind of doesn't make any difference in an international sense. But I think we struggled in this country in the beginning from being from the northeast, from Sunderland, because it was quite odd. You know, Sunderland isn't that well known for spewing out indie bands, you know, and I think radio and stuff, they heard our accents. And like, this is 2003, 2004, and they couldn't really cope with that being on the radio then. I think things are a bit different now, thankfully.
And back in the day when you first started out, you know, Barry's Garage in 2000, do you miss those days when you compare it to now, or has a lot changed since then?
I don't know. I mean, I don't miss those days because we were all desperately juggling like part-time jobs in university and trying to get the gigs and reading, you know, your uni work in the back of the van at 4 in the morning because you've been in London playing at the Barfly and stuff. And I mean, I'm very grateful of those days. I think they're important for bands to have, you know, a band that have rehearsed 3 times and then they get a record deal and suddenly they're playing in front of 2,000 people. It must be very, very hard for them. But I'm pleased that it was such a kind of organic upward slope for us. But I wouldn't let it go backward because comparatively it's a massive hardship.
You've been together almost a decade now. Is there anything in your career as a Futurehead that you'd change?
No, I would never change anything. Things got very political and that's why we made those changes. And the label we've set up now is really good for us. And I think we're all in a good headspace at the minute, you know. Barry's just got married. Just bought a house. Dave never really does anything other than play the drums. But I think between the 4 of us, we're all having a really great time with this record, and touring's been a lot easier than it has been in a while.
Do you worry about getting old as a band? Because I mean, your music's still quite fresh, and you've been around for 10 years, but there's lots of kids coming up behind you. Is that something you're conscious of when you're recording stuff?
Not when we're recording. I mean, we try to not really reference anything when we're writing music and recording it, but in the way you perceive yourself amongst this like melee of other bands, then I guess so, yeah. I mean, every band enjoys the fruits of their first album, but it's a challenge after that, you know, like especially in this country because the culture is so kind of, it's all about the debut album, you know. You get bands headlining Brixton Academy on one album, and it's a very dangerous situation because that puts a lot of pressure on these bands. But I feel like we've been through that. We did have a hard time with our second record, but you sort of like, you get a bit older and you get a bit more wise about, not just about making music, but about living your own life. And we can deal with things a lot more than a lot of other bands, I think. So as long as we keep busy and have interesting projects, then I'm not bothered about getting old, you know. I think that it's just, you know, that's just how it is, isn't it, you know. But I think we've still got a lot of things to do, and I think that the minute it gets boring or the minute that it gets difficult, then we should just separate, and I think we'd all agree on that.
And finally, have you got any ambitions for the future as the band and as you personally?
Well, we've recently just started writing music together. You know, in the past I've always written my songs and Barry's always written his, and they've never really crossed paths. But on the last record we touched on me writing songs for him to sing and us writing songs together as well. So for the next record I'd like to think we can make the whole album in that process, you know, because it was so liberating, because me and him are polar opposites as people, and I think that makes for a very interesting sort of songwriting process, a lot more interesting than just sitting at home separate and then getting into the practice room and trying to make it work, because then you're coming together over the same thing but from 2 very different vantage points.